Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
There's a Roger Ebert proverb that says, "Inside every movie, there are two bears, forever locked in combat for your soul. One bear is all things good, writing, editing, acting, tone. The other is all things evil, executive notes, lack of source material respect." My name is David, his name is Joe, and this is episode 167. And in this show, we will discuss Arecibo Observatory, star of Contact and GoldenEye, has died. We will pay tribute. David Prowse, Darth Vader, has also died. A little more serious tribute here. Hugh Keays-Byrne has also died. This is a terrible week for death. He may have only had two major parts, but oh, what parts they were. And again, we pay tribute. Warner Brothers is going to release its movies to HBO MAX and theaters. Wow. And then, the last gasp of the Fox Mutants. Joe and I will dig into the puzzling The New Mutants. What's up, my brother?
Not much, my friend, and I gotta tell you, when I thought I was possibly having to do the opening today, I literally grabbed the same quote and pretty much did the exact same thing. So I think we are certainly of one mind on this one. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, this movie was a disappointment for reasons we're about to get into.
Well, let's get to it.
For England, James? No.
Born in 1963, the 1,000-foot spherical reflector dish built into a natural sinkhole with a cable-mounted steerable receiver and several radar transmitters for emitting signals mounted 492 feet above the dish. The Arecibo Observatory was a gateway to the stars. It was a radio telescope, a LiDAR facility. It was originally, it was, searching out stars. Then it was working with SETI for a little while. It was truly a modern marvel in terms of science and technology, and was featured in two movies. First was in Contact. Was it Contact first or was it GoldenEye? I don't remember which was first. Contact was 97, so it was GoldenEye first.
Okay.
All right. So yes, GoldenEye used it first. That tremendous scene with the big fight between 006 and 007. And the Contact, a movie that's kind of a guilty pleasure, Contact, for me. So I just wanted to bring it up because it was used in movies, and I was very upset when it got severely damaged during the hurricane, and then in August of this year, cables broke, and then on December 1st at 7:55 a.m., the entire housing snapped and fell into the dish. And thanks to a lack of funding, there will be no rebuilding.
Yeah, talk about life imitating art. It crashed into the dish just like it did in GoldenEye. And, that's pretty much that was pretty much the take that all the Bond fans had this week. So yeah, kind of a shame.
Indeed, very, very, very much a shame. So yes, I'm assuming 006 is now dead.
I would say so.
Born July 1st, 1935 in Bristol, England, David Prowse was given the choice of being either Chewbacca or Darth Vader. And the 6'6" tall former bodybuilder said, "I want to be Darth Vader because everybody remembers the villain." Oh boy, do we remember him.
How right he was.
Absolutely, positively, 100%ly. You know, he didn't get to do. If you ever want to have a little fun, look up Darth Farmer on YouTube. And what it is, it's scenes from Star Wars with David Prowse speaking the original dialogue.
Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive.
The thing about him that makes him so iconic, and something that to this date they still haven't gotten right, there was a movement. The way that he moved his frame as Vader, whether he was, using a sword or just walking in the frame, he just commanded a presence that, try as they might, like when they put the Darth Vader costume on what's his face in Revenge of the Sith, okay, yeah, he's in the costume. It didn't look right. And even to a lesser extent in Rogue One, when he showed up, with the exception of the last hallway scene, it wasn't quite the same movement. There was something in the way he carried himself. There was something in the way that he moved that just was brilliant. He died November 28th in London, England. The official cause lists as complications from COVID-19, the gift that keeps on frickin' giving.
Well, yeah, it's not a good year. It's actually just, I feel like recently we're losing our Star Wars heroes, and it's it's not good.
No, certainly not good at all. If you ever want to see another movie he was in Kubrick's Clockwork Orange as well. He was he was the caretaker to the character at the end.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that. No, nice one.
And there's really not much else to say. I mean, he did have a bunch of movies, but he'll always be known for being Darth Vader.
Once again, we send off my war rig to bring back gasoline from Gastown and bullets from the bullet farm. Once again, I salute my Imperator Furiosa, and I salute my Half-Life Warboys, who will ride with me eternal on the highways of Valhalla. I am your Redeemer. It is by my hand you will rise from the ashes of this world.
Less well known, but born May 18th, 1947 in Srinagar, British India, Hugh Keays-Byrne. I bring him up because I love the Mad Max series of movies.
Ah, okay. I had no idea who this guy was. So I was sort of wondering where you were going with this. So, okay.
He was in the original Mad Max movie. He was the prime antagonist, the toe cutter, and loved so much by the director George Miller that they made him the villain in Mad Max Fury Road. He was Immortan Joe from the newest one. Yes, you will be gift shiny and chrome.
Nice.
He died December 1st, 2020. He actually has 51 film credits to his name. A couple of science fiction shows, Mr. Stubb in the TV miniseries for Moby Dick. I believe that's the one with Patrick Stewart playing Ahab. But I needed to bring him up because I knew that this was definitely a name that would not get mentioned by the Oscars, and I needed to say goodbye. And I know it's brief, but there it is.
Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. The firing power inside my crater is enough to annihilate a small army. You can watch it all on TV. It's the last program you're likely to see.
Coming to a TV near you, Dune, Matrix 4, the musical adaptation of In the Heights by Lin-Manuel Miranda, the Sopranos prequel, The Many Saints of Newark, and The Suicide Squad will debut both on HBO Max and in theaters on their respective release dates.
Yeah. I'm already seeing the memes on Facebook and Instagram. Where were you the day that Warner Brothers killed theaters forever?
I mean, what are you gonna do? It's like, how much is the Bond movie losing on a consistent basis by not being released?
I mean, they're saying it's up to like $1 million a month. Literally, it's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And I mean, I'm the last person to defend any freaking movie production company or anything like that, because part of me is like, they barely know what the hell they're doing. I make fun of executive notes and all that other stuff, but wow, man, it's finally happening. We live in a world where we're going to have the choice of sitting in our ass or going to a theater, and I get the feeling more people are going to sit on their asses.
I think the ass is going to win the contest. Yeah, boy, honestly, this is pretty insane because, I mean, last week we talked about the fact that they were going to do this with Wonder Woman, and we thought, wow, that's a pretty substantial step, and they just blew that out of the water by just saying, you know what, we're putting all our movies on HBO Max and on the big screen. Yeah, I kind of don't know what that means. I mean, if this is, I'm curious to see if this is. I'm having a little tug of war in my mind. On one hand, I guess, well, they're really trying to prop up this HBO Max. Obviously, they have a deal going, and they're trying to prop that up as best they can. So they're going to kind of come out guns blazing. But are they going to be happy with that when the pandemic subsides? Are they going to backtrack and say, all right, just theaters now because all those ticket sales we're not getting? So I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. But yeah, this is certainly. I mean, if you're a theater owner right now, you're probably just ready to pack up and move to Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear Florida's still getting it pretty bad down there with COVID. But yeah. Here's my question: what the hell do they do about points? How do they calculate that? Every single major actor star always has points based on box office. There's no box office. What do they have a deal in place for that? I see this. I guarantee you that the next round of SAG and Writers Guild negotiations are about to get very interesting with the whole streaming service thing. That's the next frontier that you're going to hear about.
Yeah, right. I mean, isn't it funny? Just 2 years ago, was it, that Steven Spielberg was kind of pitching, no, you can't give awards to films that are just on streaming. Well, now, I mean, it's just kind of, now everything is going to be on streaming, it seems like. So, yeah, I don't know. This is, it's a pretty precarious time for theaters. I'm not really, not feeling too confident.
I'm sure something will come back. We'll see. It's too early to tell how this is going to work out. It's way too early to tell. But here's hoping.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I want you to respond truthfully. Have you ever hurt someone?
Yes.
Have you ever experienced anything you'd consider abnormal?
Yes.
Last question. Do you know what mutants are?
5 young mutants, just discovering their abilities, while held in a secret facility against their will, fight to escape their past sins and save themselves. Written by Josh Boone and Nate Lee, directed by Josh Boone, The New Mutants. CBS All Access has another adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand. Stephen King's The Stand is one of my favorite books from Stephen King. The first translation that they did was okay, not the best. So when I heard they were doing another one, I was kind of excited about it. Till I read that it was being written and directed by Josh Boone. That's how I want to start.
Oh, I hope you got more than that, because I was really kind of hoping you were going to kind of come out swinging with this one, because I'll be honest with you, I walked away from this thing really scratching my head, saying, "What the hell did I just watch?" I mean, when a film gets pushed back that many times, and again, this isn't like a COVID situation, where things get postponed. This was just the good old, things ain't working right, reshoots, and so you knew this wasn't going to be good. But how bad, I don't think I was really prepared for. Because I said to myself, this is pretty baffling. Because, I mean, at least from what I can tell, this is still a Marvel-related project. And when I say related, I'm trying to think of the right word, because, I mean, it's certainly nothing to do with the larger Marvel universe. It doesn't feel like any of the X-Men's. But I'm saying to myself, I had a flashback. I can't remember which film this was at the end of, but there was a post-credit flash where they kind of focused a lot on the Essex Corporation.
That was the end of Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse.
Right. Okay. So I said to myself, there was obviously a reference in this film to the Essex Corporations, and I said, was that when they did it in Apocalypse? Were they was that a signal for this movie? And I'm looking at this, I'm saying, I mean, but it looks just so wildly different. I mean, I watched this and I said to myself, first of all, it looks like it has the budget of an after-school special. I mean, I can't believe I'm watching something this low budget in this day and age, something that is trying to pass itself off as a superhero movie. I mean, this is supposed to be in the X-Men universe, as near as I was about to say as near as I could tell, but I know it is, because I actually saw clips from Logan, which kind of blew my mind. When they actually threw in these clips, I kind of was sort of like shocked awake, like, wait, what? Like, they're trying to draw a parallel to Logan, and all of us, it was funny because the clips looked like a real movie, while this looked like an after-school special. And even the shots that, it was funny, the scene, they did this weird scene where they were interrogating the main girl from the story, and she had these kind of visions of the stuff that was going on to the children at that they referred to in Logan. And all of us, and the shots they were using of the girl in this film, they kind of cut over to this like almost found footage looking video. Like, you could see that there was a camera there for the interrogation, and every once in a while they would pop over to the camera video for some reason, looking like it was just as cheap as hell. And so I almost thought they were trying to cover up the fact that we're cutting over to a much, much better film. I mean, so it was really weird. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we haven't even started talking about the meat of the film yet, but I was just floored at just how lame and just like cheap and low budget this thing felt.
You get the feeling that this was a passion project for somebody, because one of the things I noticed, and one of the things I did want to point out, is the characterizations aren't completely off. There is some fan in this work. Maybe too much of a fan, I don't know. But each of the characters, Sunspot, Cannonball, Magic, that's Ileana's name, Moonstar, and Rain, they all were very much their counterparts. For that's the first thing that surprised me, was that I just figured this was, going to be complete bull, and I was actually shocked that, okay, whoever wrote this actually read the comics and actually have an idea about the characters. They didn't go completely they couldn't because there's a licensing issue with one of the characters. But what they replaced it with was fine. But then it's like you said, it's like, I want to do this, and I think it'll be a way to start up a whole new franchise with young exciting mutants. And it was like Fox said, yeah, here's $10 million, see what you can do with that. And I feel like they really tried to do something but couldn't, because there's a base here that they were building on that they were not allowed to bring to a full boil. That is the impression I got watching this movie. What disappointed me most about this movie was not that they tried to do it, it's that they did it terribly under some kind of weird constraints. The movie is an hour and a half long, and it flies by, and it tries to build characterization, but it builds it in the laziest way possible, which sucks because there's some really great ideas of characterization here. Illyana is, in the comic book, Illyana was kidnapped by the demon Mephisto and kept in hell for like 10 years. Okay. And they in this one, they used, the whole, Smiley Man, which was played, funnily enough, it was played by Marilyn Manson.
Was that right?
Yeah, seriously. And, and that's fine. They couldn't use Mephisto because Mephisto is still part of Marvel. At the time was still part of Marvel, whatever, And the story of Danny Moonstar is also very interesting because that is very true. When her powers, hit, she destroyed her entire village. Her powers destroyed the entire village. These are all character building moments that could have built to something nice. But why they chose to do it inside of, an offshoot of Essex to try to see, if they could turn them into killers, why they chose to basically, it was like watching a filmed version of a play, because that's how small it is. And I felt bad for the actors because I felt like each of them actually did know who the characters were, and they were trying, but they had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
I didn't hate this movie, but it's terrible.
Well, I tell you what, I kind of like your sentiment, because I like that you're. This is sort of what I was sort of hoping for from you, was that you would kind of tell me a little bit more about the characters, in terms of were they faithful? Because I honestly I watched this and I thought, boy, this is the most superficial. The script to me was so one-dimensional. It was so thin. And all of the characters, again, like seriously, the girl shows up at the home, the first one she meets, or well, actually, even just, I honestly, when the girl shows up in the room, she wakes up in the bed, she's handcuffed, she meets the one woman, and then the next scene is they're doing this little circle. Looks like an AA meeting, whatever they're doing, like group therapy. Mm-hmm. And literally so who wants to tell us about the first time they ever used their powers? As if you probably haven't heard that 100 times already, doctor. And she goes around the room. You, Illyana, you, Roberto, you, what's your name? I mean, they literally went around in a circle and named all the names. And I'm like, wow, this is how we're going to introduce our characters, huh? Could that have been any lazier if you tried? So, pretty much from the get-go, I was like, wow, this is awful. Awful. And incidentally, what you just said about the girl literally destroying her own village with her powers, watching this, I didn't get that sense at all. I did not get that impression. It looked like something had happened, and I get the the bear later on is kind of making sense now, but yeah, I wasn't getting that vibe at all. It was really bizarre. In fact, I'll even say this: I watched the movie from beginning to end, right, and I was struggling to even just keep my eyes open and focused. I rewatched it again, and at one point when they all of a sudden find themselves in the room with the file cabinets, and Ileana finds, like, literally makes a beeline to her own file. Oh, here's my file, and here's what it says. We just in a couple sentences, we just discovered the secret of what's going on here. I literally rewatched that and I put the subtitles on because it was that confusing to me. I wasn't even getting. It was it her file? Was it the boss's file? I couldn't even understand what was going on. So I literally started watching it with subtitles. I mean, that's how confusing this thing was to me. There were such random things happening. Like, there was a scene in the beginning, like, again, like, we just met Ileana and oh, she's the brooding, not so nice teen girl, whatever. All right. I mean, like, again, just so thinly written. You show her around, and there's the scene where she goes sprinting for the exit and hits the force field or whatever. But you saw the wolf run in the background, right? And again, we find out later who that is. But as I'm watching this, I'm like, what the heck was that? Why was there I mean, I couldn't even, is that a dog? Is it a wolf? I don't, like, what is that? And it just sort of just went away. So I'm like, that was random. Like, there was, I mean, I kind of felt like this whole movie was like, it was a weird hodgepodge of mess. And honestly, I feel like if there was one genuine surprise, from the trailers, when it's so funny too, by the way, this movie has been pushed forward so many times that I can remember you and I talking about trailers years ago, like years back, and when we first started seeing trailers. And I remember thinking, like, oh, okay, so they're kind of, and I thought it was mildly clever, because as we were watching a lot of the mainstream Marvel movies, the regular Marvel Universe movies, you know, one of the things that you notice, especially like around like Spider-Man Homecoming, oh, this is kind of like a John Hughes movie, and they all seem to sort of be a kind of a genre spin on a superhero film, or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like they would sort of incorporate different genres. So when this came out, I was like, oh, so they're basically doing like a horror superhero movie. Mm-hmm. And I kind of thought, like, all right, I don't know if that excites me, but okay, we'll give it a shot. It could be clever. But then as I watched it, I'm like, this is not that at all. This is more like this is Marvel does a tween movie. Like, it just kind of stunk of like Twilight, all those sort of rip-off tween movies, and I thought that's really what this is. I mean, there was points in this film where I thought they were ripping off The Breakfast Club, and I mean, like, just like, ugh, like literally, like, it was just kind of painful to watch. But yeah, I mean, it's and it's just so small, like you said. I mean, this whole thing takes place in this one building, you know, like this one building, this one boring building, and like a little bit of the grounds around the building. That's it. So, boy, yeah, talk about small. And that's why, like I said, when they cut in these weird shots of Logan, it was almost like it jostled me awake. Like, oh my God, that's what a real movie looks like.
Did you know baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than adult ones? They haven't learned how to control how much venom they secrete. All of you are dangerous. That's why you're here.
You know, I can't defend any of that, because you're right. It is. I don't know if that was their intention to make it a small movie, to give them a place to grow and breathe and to learn about them as characters, because you did bad.
Yeah.
You did a bad job of doing that. Could you have done better? I don't see why you couldn't have. These are very compelling characters, and you made them interesting enough for at least me as a fan of the comic to be able to say, oh, well, that's actually pretty in line, and oh, that's actually pretty in line. But then you wrap it in a nonsensical plot, and it is a nonsensical plot that is part, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets frickin' The Breakfast Club. It's the best way I could describe it, and maybe that's how it was pitched. Maybe that's how it was pitched. I think One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets The Breakfast Club. Like, go on. I'll write you a check for $10 million for that. my feeling is that whole end scene that happened, the big battle where they're all actually using their powers. I would bet any amount of money that the original version didn't have them showing their powers very much. That's my money.
It could very well be, but I mean, maybe. I like your theory, but I'm saying to myself, if this was supposed to be a character study, well then write characters. I mean, this was so thin. I mean, honestly, I felt like I was watching the time go by. I felt like it was about halfway through the movie before something happened. There was nothing really happening throughout most of this film. Then about halfway through, like, something happened. I can't remember what it was now, but I literally said, well, finally, something is actually literally happening. Because I'm just watching these people just hang around, talk to each other. These two make out. And then, I guess it was the scene in the pool when, like, the monster shows up. And even that was confusing to me because the guy was on fire, right? Like the guy, Roberto.
Roberto is Sunspot. Yes, go on.
At that point, I didn't even really know what his powers were, I don't think, unless I missed it.
No, they purposely held off on that.
Which is fine, except the monster appears, and then he's screaming and yelling, and then all of a sudden he's on fire. And so when the woman the nurse, whatever you call her, comes running in and he's standing there on fire, I'm like, oh my God, the guy's on fire. Like I thought this was a bad thing, that the monster set him on fire. Then she pushed him in the pool and he was fine or whatever. So I still, even after seeing that, I still hadn't even caught the idea that this was his powers yet. I can't tell, by the way. There was a couple things that were happening in this movie where, like, these people's, I guess their fears were coming to life. And for a lot of this, I couldn't tell, am I watching them having these sort of fights in their minds, or is it literally happening? And for a big part of this, I kind of couldn't really figure out which was which. So again, when he was on fire and the monster was there, I'm like, did he dream it? Did this actually happen? And then it was sort of happening again later. And it was, I even, like, right now, I'm still not even really fully processed, I guess. I'm guessing now that the whole point of this movie was that literally everything that was happening was because of the lead girl. That was her power to conjure people's worst nightmares, literally to real life, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole story. And it was almost like by the time that they found the file, right? And she's, oh, here's Essex Corp. They're really trying to make us killers. At that point, I kind of felt like, but that's not the story. That's not the story I'm watching. The story is about the girl and making monsters. Like, I kind of felt like that was an afterthought at that point. So I'm like, why are we even talking about that now? But it was almost like we have to kind of pull this thing together into and have a villain. So, so the lady has to be a full-blown villain at this point. And honestly, I thought by the time the big giant bear shows up, I was literally like this. Had we been watching this in a theater, that would have been the moment that I bust out loud laughing. Like, that to me was like just so ridiculous. Like I literally out loud I'm like, are you serious? Are you joking? A big giant bear? So yeah, I don't know. It was a mess.
The demon bear, as it's called, is actually a character, a villain. Yeah.
Well, at least listen. I'll tell you what. I mean, at least it. See, this is sort of one of those moments where I'm saying to myself, like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that's saying, like there's a voice in the back of my head saying, "Hey, Joe, question: if everybody on screen had a costume, would you have liked this better?" And I'm kind of like, maybe. I don't know. Like, I like what you're saying, that they're at least faithful to real characters. But yeah, I guess if you're going to sort of turn this into, I wish I could remember some of the names of the movies that I mentioned Twilight, but there's something like Divergent was one. There's a couple of those kind of young, like, movies where they're kind of, it's almost like sort of a combination of like, Twilight and Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You know,
it was very much pitched as like a young adult novel type movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like that's really more what this looked like. It felt more like, young adult novel with magical powers and stuff, and like people's specific powers. Again, if you're doing a comic movie and you're doing characters I should recognize, then maybe it works. But if I'm just watching this kind of hodgepodge of people with kind of really random abilities, and honestly, by the time I got to the end, I still couldn't quite get my head around who exactly can do what. So I don't know. It ends up being this weird patchwork of stuff, and I didn't find any logical semblance of coherence.
You know, this movie has the distinction of being the last Marvel film to be released with Stan Lee as an executive producer.
Oh, is that right? Well, thank God he didn't do a cameo.
Yeah. I'm very much I am very much happy about that. Sorry about that.
All right.
This movie is a shame. It's a shame that it didn't give the characters enough respect to truly let them blossom and grow. It is a shame that it wasted some pretty decent actors. Okay, you had Macy Williams. She's best known from frickin' Game of Thrones. And she was fine as Rain. Anya Taylor-Joy as Ileana. She was pretty good, and I like her. I've liked her since I saw her in Split. She was in The Witch. She's in the Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you watched The Queen's Gambit. That's a good flick.
I haven't, but I'm hearing a lot about it, and I kind of had the same. As soon as I realized that she was in that, I sort of did the same that you did. I'm glad she got something else now better. I do remember her from The Witch, and I thought she was great in that.
Yeah.
Here, boy, is she not served very well. I thought she was so thinly written, such a one-dimensional character. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Go on. I'm sorry, but yeah, your point is well received. That I think the actors deserve a lot better than this.
100%. Even Charlie Heaton doing his best, Kentucky accent, even though he's actually from West Yorkshire, England. I thought.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, he's English. I didn't know that either, and he's from Stranger Things. He's the older brother of Will from Stranger Things.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a shame that each of them, tried. They weren't half-assing it. They weren't trying to half-ass it. They were doing the best they could with what they got. It's just that what they got, well, was terrible.
What is this place?
This isn't a hospital.
It's a haunted house.
Yes, I completely agree. Honestly, I literally, I feel like when we finally come to scoring, you will probably score this at least 1 or maybe even 2 points higher than me. And I kind of feel, I almost feel a tad relieved, because I sort of feel like because you knew these characters better than me, you were able to sort of, understand a little bit more what was happening and why. I mean, even I'd say, honestly, I had, I'll say, mixed feelings when I saw that Ileana had the puppet of the purple dragon.
Yeah, Lockheed, yes.
Yeah, because I said to myself, because I was kind of just tiny little nibbles of remembering these characters from the comics. So when I saw the dragon, I was like, oh right, the little purple dragon. And then I kind of was like, oh, is the puppet their way of kind of just winking to fans who know the character that they can't actually do the dragon? So I thought, all right. And then of course, later they actually do a full-blown dragon. I was like, all right, I see where they were going with that. But the bottom line is, like I said, I'm glad that you at least kind of felt a little like you had a little more of a window into the logic of what was happening in the film, where I kind of felt like I had none, and I kind of feel like if you're an audience member who's watching this and don't know these characters at all, this movie is a shambles. Like it literally is, like I said, just a hodgepodge of crap going on, and none of it makes any sense. So I'm glad you'll probably rank it just a little higher than me.
Probably not as much as you think. The fact that they at least had an idea but couldn't make it happen, to me, in many ways, is more frustrating.
Yeah.
But honestly, I'm done with this movie. I really, really am. I know it is not a lot of time in and everything like that, and I knew this wasn't going to be a very long show simply because this movie doesn't give you much. It gives you really nothing. It gives you moderate characterizations. It gives you a hodgepodge of a screenplay based on much superior screenplay. No real horror elements if it's supposed to be a horror movie. No real character to root for because, they're a bunch of obnoxious teens. And it's like, 1 minute Ileana's all, she's going to kill us all. And then like the next scene, I will help you. What? Where did that character arc come from? That would have been a nice character arc to see.
Dude, honestly, yes. And that seriously, I couldn't figure out this girl because, like, one hand she was tough and badass, and she was like the most powerful of the bunch, and then she'd be like this helpless little damsel in distress. There's one shot where, like, she was right about to like kill the lead, and then all of a sudden, like, the next shot is her getting thrown into her solitary cell by the lady. And I'm like, well, why is she suddenly helpless? What just happened there? Why doesn't she stand? So yeah, the whole time I'm scratching my head trying to figure it out. And like, right, depending on what part of the movie it is, 1 minute she's kind of badass and tough, and another minute she's totally helpless and has to get rescued. So I wasn't. Yeah, I mean, talk about again. If this was supposed to be in any way a thoughtful character study, boy, that's a big fail there.
How much of a fail?
Who's going first?
I'm going to let you go first because you seem to think you know my score, but I want to hear you. I want to hear you, sir.
I'll tell you what. I'm waffling. You don't answer me. Don't tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I have a hunch that while I'm waffling between a 1 and a 2, you're probably waffling between a two or a 3. Again, just simply based on what you can see, that someone somewhere was trying to do something, but for me, I think I'm gonna literally give it a 1. Like I said, I without any prior knowledge to any of these characters, or even just the limited knowledge that I had, nothing in this movie made sense. Nothing was satisfying. I felt like it was as cliche as you could possibly get. A total young adult novel tween thing, and boy, just boring, terrible, uninteresting. Nothing made any logical sense, and honestly, it was a colossal waste of time. I mean, it was honestly one of the smallest. And there can be small movies. I mean, a movie doesn't have to be epic to be good if you keep it interesting. But this was not. It was shockingly lazy. As I mentioned, when people are getting introduced during this little roundtable therapy session, I'm like, good Lord, is this boring? This is the worst writing I can recall in recent memory. The fact that they're literally just getting introduced one name at a time. When's the first time you ever used your powers? As if this is the first time they're all meeting, which we know they're not. I mean, that is the quintessential terrible writing, is when you hear people saying to the audience things that these characters would already know. So, yeah, I mean, just the writing is piss poor. Everything about it was lame. The effects were okay at best. Just kind of like another big CGI fest at parts. And again, for just there you go. That's it. It gets a 1. It's a bad movie, period.
I gave it a 2.
Well, there you go.
It gets 1 point because I feel like, and I started the show off by decrying Josh Boone for directing the upcoming The Stand for CBS. And I stand by that. I don't have a great deal of faith in this person, but there was obviously something there that Josh saw, and he got these little twigs right. Just these little twigs. These little twigs. And I could tell that the twigs that he was trying to get right was not about fan service. It felt more respectful than that. I feel like this is a movie that Josh Boone did based on what he was given as opposed to what he might have wanted to do. We'll never know. We will never, ever know because of the whole cluster F of this entire situation. But it's those little elements that were enough for me to elevate it up to a 2. It's like a 1.8 something or other. I just rounded up. I should probably round down, but there it is. It was nice to see these characters, and there's a part of me that is upset that we won't see Anya Taylor-Joy playing Illyana again. I would have loved to have seen her with, Colossus, with like a real Colossus, because a real Colossus is coming pretty soon. And just such a terrible, terrible miscalculation in all respects. The idea of doing people developing their discovering their mutant powers as a horror movie has potential. These characters have potential, but you blew it. You blew it big time. Why? 10 years from now, maybe somebody will write a novel about it. 2 is all you get. No. And you should feel happy I gave you that much.
I'm kind of glad you ended on that note where you said maybe someday someone will write a novel. I literally said to myself at one point watching this film, I said, this is one of those movies where I'd be far more interested in hearing the behind the scenes debacle that created this mess than having to actually sit through it.
Agreed. Oof, and now comes the real fun.
I'll tell you what. Can I do a little cheat here?
Cheat away, my man. Cheat away.
Well, actually, maybe you should go first. I'd like to sort of pull a cheat when it comes to me. So maybe I'll ask you to go first.
It's very, very simple. Okay, it's not going to fix everything, but could you stop with the editing? Could you just stop with could you let these characters be? Okay, could you actually let the characters be introduced in a way that feels natural? And that whole scene that you were complaining about, where she was sitting there, Ileana, Roberto, Sam's like, oh, that's how you're going to introduce these characters? Lazy as frack. You could have opened this movie with these 5 characters each discovering their powers the way that they opened it with Moonstars, okay? And then had them at the facility. That would have been much better. And I swear to you, I feel like that's what he wanted to do, but for whatever reason, they couldn't. Probably budgetary. I'm going to go with budgetary. Whatever the case may be, for God's sake, making it into an hour and 30 minutes was a tragedy and gave this movie 0 chance of succeeding because you rushed everything. Too much editing is what I wrote down as Who Asked You. Plain and simple.
Nice. I would even add to that. How about a little interesting camera work? Maybe there's like maybe if they just sort of went around the circle a little bit, and like everything about this film was wrong and lazy. All right, for my cheat, my friend. My least favorite part of the film. And what would I have done to possibly improve the film? Well, the worst part for me was the clips from Logan. when I saw when they inserted the clips from Logan, I said, "What the heck?" Because honestly, I felt like at that moment, it was almost like if you're not convinced you're watching a crap movie with no budget, no interesting visuals, no interesting camera work, no interesting writing, let me remind you what a good film looks like. So they threw in these clips from Logan, and literally it was just a couple seconds. But in those few seconds, I felt like I was watching something I was looking through a peephole into a more interesting film. Just those little clips. what they were doing. The camera was moving. You know, the camera was moving with what was happening in the action. They put a lot more thought into that the couple seconds that we saw. Like, that's how good Logan was. And this movie just, all it did was remind me, good Lord, this movie's terrible. You know? So that's my that's my Who Asked You. But if as I said, if you'll allow me to cheat, my for your consideration, the clips from Logan. Because the clips from Logan,
Go on.
the clips of Logan was the most entertaining part of the film. The best part of the film were the few seconds I saw of a better movie. As I said, it was like looking through a little keyhole into a better film. So that's all I got.
Well, just drop the mic on that one. Holy smokes, man. Are you okay? Show me on the doll where the movie touched you.
I'm sure you have something. Let's end on a positive.
I feel that for your consideration, all the actors, you were way too good for this movie.
There you go.
Okay? Honestly, I feel like they all tried their best to make this work. All right? And honestly, Anya Taylor-Joy, when she was playing badass Ileana, she was perfect. Okay? Heaton, when he was talking about, you know, his father and what happened and everything like that worked for me. Maisie Williams, when she was talking about, you know, the preacher that tried to beat her to death when he found out that she was a demon, that type of those. I miss that movie. Where's that movie? That's the movie I would have liked to have watched, ladies and gentlemen. You know. So I don't blame the actors for this at all. I can sense it. I can see it. They all tried their best. This was what they wanted to do. And you know what? They messed it up. So yeah, there's my for your consideration. At least the actors tried. It's not much, but it's all I've got for a movie that has as little interest in engaging its audience as this one did.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, mission accomplished. I was kind of hoping to end off on something mildly positive, and I think you delivered. I agree with you. The actors here were here to work. You know, I think this, like you said, it had the makings of a good character study. But with that said, the film doesn't deliver. But yes, the actors were here to do whatever they could with it.
They tried. But they failed pretty badly.
You've been through a lot. Get some rest.
And thus ends our review of 2017's New Mutants.
I'll tell you what, just as a quick side note, there's a part of me that's like, wow, I gave Tenet like a little 5-minute review a couple weeks ago, and we gave this a whole hour. I'm kind of saying to myself, maybe when we get our hands on it,
Tenet is releasing
a full hour.
Yeah, Tenet is releasing in 2 weeks. We will do it after the next series. We will absolutely do it after the next series.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, if we're going to devote an hour to this one, we should at least give it to Tenet.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. But next week, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a new series, and oh boy, it's going to be a juicy one. Ladies and gentlemen, for our next episode, we are going back to the future.
Dun, 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 dun.
I am looking forward to talking about this. Now, you know, I really, really am. Back to the Future was one of my favorite movies. So I'm curious to see if it still holds up in my mind. And my kid, Liam, loves this series of movies.
Yeah, same here. I'm looking forward to it. And I kind of feel like, even though I'm sure we will have opinions about how the series progresses, at least I think we could probably agree it certainly doesn't nosedive the way most of the series we've been doing tend to do. It doesn't do a Terminator where it just kind of collapses in on itself. So I think this should be a pretty interesting series to do.
I agree. I absolutely positively agree. And I am looking forward to it, sir.
Same here. My friend, as always, this was a lot of fun and could have been a better movie, but hey, at least I had somebody to vent to. Like you said, it's,
exactly.
I wasn't hurt though. There you go.
All right, man. I you know what? I'm glad we got it out of the way. We've got a nice set of movies coming up that should be a lot of fun. So maybe that'll offset it, you know? So thank you,
100%.
Sir.
Well, thank you, my friend, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.